The envelope didn't look important. A clean white rectangle slid in with grocery circulars and coupons. The kind of mail you stack and forget. The logo in the corner said High Ridge Community Bank in a pale mountain blue. I brewed coffee, wiped the counter, watered the hydrangeas on the porch, and only then picked it up. My name, Ruth Bennett, was machine printed so neatly it made me uneasy. I turned the envelope over once, twice, as if weight might tell me what was inside. The bungalow on Oakmere Lane has been mine for a long time. Frank and I burned the mortgage in a coffee can behind the shed 25 years ago. We laughed, coughed on the smoke, and ate peach ice cream out of the carton. I remember that better than my last birthday. I slit the flap with a butter knife. Past due notice. It read amount due, late charge, and an account number that belonged to someone else's life. Property 9, Palisade Crest Lake, Travis Reserve. 30-year note. Current delinquency, 2 months. I read it twice without breathing, then a third time hoping the words would fall apart. I don't own a house on Lake Travis. I have never even asked a bank for a loan since Frank died. There was a number at the bottom of the page. I dialed with a hand that didn't feel like mine. High Ridge Community Bank. This is Tasha, a young voice said. Office noise murmured behind her. How can I help you today? I received a payment notice on a mortgage I never took out. I said it has my name and social security number. There's a mistake. One moment, Miss Bennett. Keys clicked. Okay. I do see a file under your name. Loan opened last month. Primary Security 9 Palisade Crest. And there's a durable power of attorney on record authorizing an agent to act for you. My chest went tight. What agent? I can't disclose the full name without verification. She took me through security questions no one else should know. Mother's maiden name. First car. The color of the front door on Oakmere. When we bought it, Frank insisted on green. Thank you, she said after I passed. Your designated agent is Vanessa King. She provided a copy of your driver's license and social security card. The notary's stamp is valid. Everything appears in order on our end. If you believe there's fraud, you should contact law enforcement, but payments remain due until we receive a formal dispute. I didn't sign anything I said. My voice sounded far away, like it came down the hallway from another room. I don't know how you have my ID. I'm sorry, ma'am, she said in a practiced, gentle way. I can add notes to the account. We hung up, and I set the phone beside the letter and listened to the refrigerator hum. Outside, a truck downshifted on Oakmere. A cicada rattled in the live oak. My hands shook, so I folded them together and pretended I was saying grace. I had someplace to be. Zoe was turning 14, and Vanessa had reserved a long table at a barbecue spot on South Congress with mason jars, strung lights, and a wall where people took pictures for the internet. I told myself I would not ruin the day. I told myself a lot of things I didn't feel. I parked 2 blocks away and walked so I could think. The place smelled like hickory and sugar. At the curb, a midnight blue Tesla idled with a temporary tag slick against the windshield. Vanessa has always liked to arrive as though cameras were waiting. She saw me and smiled without warmth. Vanessa shines like a storefront at dusk. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, eyes scanning.
Who's looking?
Mom, she said, kissing the air near my cheek. You made it. Let's keep things light today. Okay, Zoe's day. Her fingers pressed mine down when I reached for my purse. No paperwork, please. You know how you get. I have a letter from the bank, I said. And I have a party, she said, still smiling. Let's sit. Inside, the table was loud with cousins and friends. Cole Ramsey, tall in a linen jacket, a watch that caught every light, pulled out Vanessa's chair. Michael, my son, arrived late and clapped me on the shoulder like all was right. A server slid a tray of ribs onto butcher paper, and everybody reached with sticky hands. I gave Zoe a small velvet box. Inside lay a silver compass pendant. Nothing expensive, just something that points you where you're going. Thanks, Nana, she said politely, already half turned toward a new phone and a glossy box a friend had brought. Vanessa's eyebrows lifted like she'd expected that exact outcome. Cole laughed too loudly at something a man in a pearl snap shirt said about opportunities on the lake. Michael leaned in. Mom, the house must be a lot for you now. Have you thought about one of those new condos near the Greenbelt? Elevator, pool, less work? He said it the way people say the weather will be nice all week, as if it isn't a choice at all. I like my work, I said. Vanessa touched Zoe's shoulder and looked back at me. Mom, you shouldn't read every piece of mail. So many scams target seniors. Toss what confuses you. She popped a pickled onion into her mouth and kept her smile open for the room. Scams target seniors. I took a slow breath and looked at the Tesla outside, at the new handbag on the back of her chair, at the way Cole's hand hovered near her wrist like he was guarding something precious. Vanessa has always spoken in thinly sliced truths. The thinner they get, the sharper the edges. I left before dessert. The heat lifted off the street in waves as I walked to the car, and my knees ached in the way they do when weather is changing. At home, the hydrangeas threw soft blue shadows on the living room rug. I brought out the old laptop Michael bought me when he said I needed to stay current and waited for it to wake up. The fan made a small, steady sound. I typed 9 Palisade Crest into the county appraisal site. The photos were engineered to sell a dream. Glass and pale limestone, a balcony like a ship's rail, an infinity pool shaped like a comma hanging off the hill over Lake Travis. The words Lake Travis Reserve sounded like a promise whispered in a sales office. I clicked Deed History. Buyer: Arcadia View Holdings LLC. Recording date: last Tuesday. A separate tab took me to state business filings. Registered agent: Cole A. Ramsey. The line on the screen didn't change, no matter how long I stared at it. I scrolled until the letters blurred and went back to the beginning. The late notice, the power of attorney, the notary stamp that said everything was fine. I reached for the phone, then set it down again. The hydrangeas bumped the window in a small wind. Somewhere, a dog barked twice and fell quiet. I saved the deed page as a PDF and emailed it to myself, so I wouldn't lose it. Then I folded the letter carefully, slid it back into its envelope, and aligned the edges on the kitchen table with more care than anything deserves. The house creaked once, like an old friend shifting in sleep. Nothing about this was a mistake. In the morning, I took a number at the Travis County clerk and sat under a vent that blew too cold for August. A young man in a BOLO tie called 7-2, and I slid my stack of papers through the window. The clerk glanced at the High Ridge notice, then at me, then at the screen. I'll pull recorded instruments on 9 Palisade Crest and anything filed under Ruth E. Bennett within the last 60 days, he said. His fingers moved with the bored rhythm of someone who has watched lives change behind glass. He printed a deed transfer to Arcadia View Holdings LLC and a durable power of attorney bearing my name. The POA listing was new, filed 8 days earlier, notarized in Williamson County, though all the addresses were in Travis. The witness line said Sharon M. Driscoll with a Round Rock Street and a signature that looped like it was practicing for a wedding invitation. Can I get the notary's commission number? I asked. It's there, he said, tapping the seal. TX 1282773 expires 2027. I paid for certified copies and stepped into the sun with a manila envelope that felt heavier than it was. The courthouse square smelled like cut grass and diesel. On a bench under a cedar elm, I balanced the file and read every line. My name appeared 12 times, spelled right each time. My birth date, my driver's license number, my social security number. The signature looked like mine on a day without coffee. Close enough to fool a stranger, not close enough to fool me. I caught the city bus home and set the envelope on the kitchen table, then pulled the laptop closer and typed, Texas, not to research. The Secretary of State database confirmed the commission number. I called the phone listed. This number is no longer in service, a recording said. I called again, because sometimes machines are wrong. The same voice told me the same truth. I opened another tab, Travis County voter records. There was no Sharon M. Driscoll at that Round Rock address. I tried property tax. The parcel belonged to a landscaping company, a P.O. box, and no person by that name. The lines on the page didn't prove anything on their own. Together, they made a shape. I found Almary's by accident, and then on purpose. At the Senior Resource Center, a flyer curled on a corkboard. Elder Law Clinic protecting you, and what's yours? Someone had taken the normal tear-off tabs. Someone else had printed a second set and clipped them neatly at the bottom. I called, and a human answered on the third ring. Her office sat in a converted bungalow near the university, wood floors, diplomas, a wall of file boxes with neat labels. Elma was in her early 60s, small and straight-backed, hair pulled into a silver knot. She shook my hand like she trusted me to decide how hard to hold on. "Tell me everything," she said. I told her about the envelope, the phone call, the barbecue, the Tesla, the new handbag, the way Cole's hand hovered like he owned the air around Vanessa. I told her about the clerk, the POA, the witness who might not exist, the notary with a dead number. While I spoke, Alma underlined phrases on a yellow pad. POA agent, Vanessa King, Arcadia View Holdings, Commission TX 1282773. When I finished, she said, "We're going to make a clean paper trail. It won't fix what's already been done, but it gives us leverage." She printed forms, an FTC identity theft report, a fraud affidavit for High Ridge, and a list of steps in block letters. Police report, even if they do nothing at first, creates a case number. Credit freeze at the 3 bureaus. Bank fraud department fax, email, and certified mail. Do not rely on anyone's voice, she said.
Paper.
Paper answers its own questions. She examined the POA with a jeweler's loop taken from a drawer.
"See here," she said.
Notary's seal is crisp. The date format is unusual. Your signature crosses the margin, which is a small thing, but people signing their own documents rarely do that. She paused over the witness signature. And this flourish. It's what people do when they're copying someone else's idea of a signature rather than their own habit. Her tone stayed even. Not cruel, just precise. Precision makes a different kind of comfort. I filed a report at the Austin Police Department. The officer at the desk, a man with hair dyed a sincere black, asked the kind of questions I would have asked if I were him. "Any recent hospital visits, Miss Bennett? Any appointments where you handed over an ID for copying?" I thought of dentist forms, urgent care after a fall, the time at the pharmacy when the lines stretched to the greeting cards, and everyone, me included, handed IDs down the counter like coins. He gave me a card with a case number and said a detective might call. He did not promise they would. Back in Alma's office, we called the bank's fraud line together. Alma spoke in a steady tempo that left no room for misunderstanding, citing statute and policy numbers. I repeated under my breath to learn the shape of them. She faxed my affidavit while I was on the phone so the file would update before a person could forget we had called. Then we sat in silence while her machine spit out a confirmation page, like a ribbon. Alma clicked through NMLS Consumer Access and found Trevor Lane, the mortgage broker on the Lake Travis file. His photo showed a handsome man trying not to look at himself. There was a disciplinary action, a state consent order 5 years ago for documentation irregularities, and a fine that looked like a number people laughed off when they made the kind of money you could make moving paper. "Friend of Vanessa's," I said. "High school friends make the easiest fraud," Alma said. She wrote, "Trevor demand letter" on the pad. "We'll send him a notice of potential civil liability and copy his company in the bank." People who sell trust hate having theirs questioned. By late afternoon, the sky turned that flat white. That means the heat has decided to stay. Alma drove while I read HOA restrictions allowed from my phone. Lake Travis reserved short-term rentals prohibited. No commercial events without board approval. Use in keeping with residential character.
"Show me the house," she said.
We wound around hairpin streets cut into limestone past mailboxes that looked like little forts. 9 Palisade Crest sat on a slope of crushed granite and drought-tolerant shrubs, glass catching the lake like a mirror in every window. A white cargo van idled in the driveway. 2 women in black carried garment bags inside. A chalkboard sign leaned against the front step. "Private session today by appointment." "Not an open house," Alma said. "It's always an open house if the doors are open," I said, but I stayed on the sidewalk. We watched for 5 minutes. A man with a camera the size of a baby followed Vanessa from room to room while she stopped in doorways to make little cathedral shapes with her hands. She glanced at the lens the way people check their reflection in a spoon. Cole stood near the kitchen island with someone in a blazer flipping through a folder the way you flip through something you haven't read. A woman with a clipboard hurried out to the curb. "Are you ladies on the list?" she asked. "No," Alma said, "just admiring the rock work." The woman smiled, the kind of smile you reserve for trespassers you can't legally remove. "It's a private session," she said. "We'll be wrapped by 5. We left. Along the ridge, a few homeowners had propped HOA meeting notices on their mailboxes, the paper flapping under binder clips. Special board session use violations, noise parking. Alma parked under a live oak and wrote the time and date in her book.
"We'll attend," she said.
"And then you don't speak unless they ask you to. I'll handle the speaking." "I can be quiet," I said. It was true until it wasn't. I made coffee when I got home and set 3 saucers on the table. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I went bureau by bureau. Froze my credit, set fraud alerts, changed passwords I had kept too long out of stubbornness. My hands stopped shaking when there were boxes to check and pages to print. Michael called around 7. "Mom said you showed up at the house," he said. He sounded tired in a way that pretends to be reasonable. "You can't do that. It's not a good look." "I stood on a public sidewalk," I said. "Still," he said, "this is embarrassing. If you've got concerns, talk to me. Don't start, creating a scene." I filed a police report. I said, "There is a case number." Silence. "Mom," he said finally. "You know, Ness, she's dramatic, not criminal." We ended the call with words people use when they want to stay family. The HOA board met in a clubhouse that smelled like carpet cleaner and lake water. People came with folded arms and open folders. A woman in a visor spoke first about noise after 10. A man described guests parking across his driveway, so he had to back into a cactus bed. Someone else passed around a printout of a social media post where Vanessa had written, "Our forever venue," under a photo of the balcony at Golden Hour. Alma waited until public comment. She stood, gave her name and bar number, and handed copies of the POA and deed history across the table. She spoke without heat. Unapproved commercial use, questionable authority, recorded instruments in conflict with deed restrictions. The board chair, a man whose forehead had learned to frown, took the papers and said they would confer with counsel. On the drive back, cicadas screamed in the trees like electricity running on bark. A storm flickered way off toward Marble Falls, just heat lightning pretending to be weather. Alma set the folder on my lap. The certified copies on top, the case number from the police report on a sticky note in blue ink. "Keep these somewhere safe," she said. "Not in your purse." I slid the folder into the drawer, where Frank used to keep warranties for tools. The house clicked as it cooled. I rinsed 2 coffee mugs and set them upside down on a towel to dry. The hydrangeas need water every 3rd day. I water them every other day because rules made for plants are different when heat has an opinion. I wrote the case number on the inside cover of my address book in pencil and closed it with my thumb pressed hard on the spine until it creaked. Then I sat at the table and read Alma's list again, line by line, until the ink marks felt like edges on something I could hold. The wind ran hard off the lake the day they staged the house like a magazine. I knew because the HOA calendar listed a special session for the following evening, and Vanessa had posted a flyer-shaped burst on her page that morning. Private bridal editorial, Lake Travis Reserve. Closed set. Closed sets tend to leak. Alma parked 2 streets down where the limestone curb sloped to scrub and mosquito. "We're observers," she said, locking the car, eyes open, mouths closed. The driveway at 9 Palisade Crest held a box truck with a florist's name painted in cursive. A Sprinter van with a production logo and 4 SUVs. A man in shorts and a headset dragged a coil of cable across the stones. Inside, air conditioning poured out cold enough to wrinkle skin. I stood just beyond the threshold where the cool and heat touched and parted like strangers passing. 5 minutes to reset, someone called. On the balcony, a model in a tulle dress leaned on the glass veil pinned to her hair with something that glittered like frost. The photographer, a woman with tattooed forearms and a camera wearing a matte black lens like a bell, adjusted the angle to catch the lake. Cole floated, offering bottles of water with labels peeled the universal way of pretending no brand had paid to be there. Vanessa moved like she had been here longer than the furniture. She put a hand on the marble island and made a little arch of her fingers as if framing the moment for an invisible interviewer. "We wanted light," she told the videographer. "We wanted ease," she said. The way some people say, I." A woman with a clipboard stepped into our air. "This is a closed production," she said politely, in the way of hospitality workers who manage rich people's tempers for a living. "We'll need you to step back to the sidewalk." Elma nodded and did not move. "I represent Miss Bennett," she said. "We're not interfering. We're observing." "Then observe from public right-of-way," the woman said. Her smile did not shift.
She was good at this.
We stepped onto the path. A drone hovered below balcony height like a dragonfly with opinions. It drifted toward the infinity pool, which threw the lake back in a thin sheet of stirred metal. I watched Zoe for a moment before she saw me. She stood near the stairs with a tray of lemonade, too old to be a helper, too young to be a host. When she noticed me, her eyebrows popped like tiny wings and then settled as if she had been told a script and wanted to keep to it. "Hi, Nana," she said, voice low. "Hi, honey." I nodded at the dress on the balcony, the camera, the cords taped to the floor. "Big day." "Mom says it's just content." She shrugged in a way that said she had learned to act like nothing is big. They were arguing about the hedge earlier. "It's not in color palette. It's a hedge," I said. "That's what Uncle Mike said," she said, and made a little smile that felt like a bridge slung over a ravine. Alma touched my sleeve. A white county SUV rolled up, orange light tucked into the grill. Another car followed, code compliance on the door of the county seal, on the flank. Two people stepped out wearing polos embroidered with their department. They carried clipboards. One had a blue roll of tape and a manila envelope with a red stripe. The headset man stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're in the middle. This won't take long," the woman said, calm as a nurse checking a pulse. "We're posting a temporary notice to cease event operations pending review for alleged unpermitted commercial activity and potential deed restriction violations. No fines assessed at this time." She looked at the front door and the post nearest the steps. One here, one there. Tape ripped quick and clean. The paper went up with a firmness that belonged to other rooms, courtrooms, offices, where people lean on law instead of charm. The videographer lowered her camera without being told. On the balcony, the model looked toward the lake like someone trying to remember the next line of a song. Vanessa appeared, fast smile still on, voice already polished. "Oh gosh," she said, bright and gracious, the way you thank a stranger for holding an elevator. "This must be a misunderstanding. We're not an event. It's just a family shoot in our home." The compliance officer removed her sunglasses and tucked them in her collar. "Then you are temporarily restrained from further commercial filming until authorization is confirmed." She slid a carbon copy from the envelope and held it out like a gift no one wanted. "Signed to acknowledge receipt." "Where is this coming from?" Cole asked, voice dropped one register for weight. "Complaints," the officer said. "Board notification. Public postings." I saw the moment Vanessa recognized Elma. Her face made the smallest change, half a breath's worth, the difference between a flattering light and a true one. She held the pen above the paper and smiled a little wider. "Of course," she said, "we follow the rules out here. We're very big on community." Her teeth showed. She signed her name with loops that told a better story than the one the letters made. The drone landed. The florist whispered to her assistant and began to wrap the arch as if flowers were military equipment. The woman with the clipboard started moving shoots on the schedule to TBD with a pencil that had been sharpened to a needle. The videographer capped her lens and rolled the shoulder that had been doing the work of 3 people. Michael came up the steps at a fast clip, tie off, shirt open at the throat like he had been called out of something expensive. He put a hand on my elbow and steered me toward a column, painted to look like stone. "Mom," he said through teeth meant for smiling. "What are we doing here?" "Writing a notice on a wall," I said. This makes Ness look like a clown, he said, keeping his voice low.
You can talk to me.
Why embarrass her? Because the wall reads back, I said. He looked at Elma, as if she were a type of weather. You lawyers, he said, you don't care where the storm lands. Alma folded her hands. Mr. Bennett, if the use's legal authorization is issued, the notice will come down. If it is not, the notice stays. She left out everything else because everything else was already written on paper. People do not like to be the first to leave, but they like to be the last even less. Vendors began their vanishing act. Their gear lights collapsed to sticks. Silk backdrops rolled to tubes, vases repacked with their own tissue. A man who had been grinning into a slate of canned cocktails took a phone call, turned gray at the edges, and told his assistant to load. Cole attempted the soft block, hands spread, palms out like he was collecting a tide. The tide did what tides do. Vanessa found me when the driveway started to clear. We stood beside a rosemary bush that had been clipped into a sphere.
She did not ask how I had found out. She did not ask why.
You couldn't give me anything, she said quietly, like a line meant for a microphone close to her mouth. So I took a place where people would finally look at me. I watched the rosemary hold its shape. I did not touch her. You took my name to do it, I said. She laughed once, a sound with no upward tilt. Your name never did anything for me, Ruth. We looked at each other the way you look at someone through a window. The face clear, the air between you full of your own breath. I brought you a compass once. I said you were 10. You wanted to know if it would work at the mall. You said the escalators pointed wrong.
I learned to point myself, she said.
Zoe stood at the doorway holding the lemonade tray. She did not interrupt. She did not join. She looked between us like someone who had been taught how to stand perfectly still until the adult with the loudest keys finished talking. The compliance officers returned to their SUV. The notice flapped once in a gust and held. A neighbor with a Labrador paused long enough to read it out loud in a tone that did not quite hide pleasure. Traffic on the lake made threads of white water. A thunderhead built over the dam, taller than anything humans make. Back at Elma's office, the air was warmer, the light kinder. She set the carbon copy on her desk and reached for her rubber stamp. The stamp hit the page and left received in purple ink with a date in the middle. Paper in, she said. Paper out. She slid a printed demand letter from the tray and initialed the corner to Trevor Lane. Read documentation and potential liability. I watched her seal it and set it beside 2 more addressed to a mortgage department and the registered agent box for Arcadia. I don't like leaving that girl standing there, I said, and did not specify which one. Alma closed the drawer with the stamps and leaned her hip against the desk. You kept your voice even, she said. You didn't touch anybody. You watched the posting go up, and you didn't pull it down. That's more than most can do. You make it sound like something hard, I said.
It is, she said.
Evening made the hydrangeas almost blue-black. I watered them slowly, careful to soak the roots and not the leaves. The hose made a soft arc on the lawn. Inside, I spread the day on the table. The code notice stamped. Received the police card with a case number, the certified copies from the clerk, the printouts from the Secretary of State. I laid them in order until the pieces made a picture someone else might have drawn. Michael texted twice. Can we talk? And then call me when you can, Mom? I put the phone face down and listened to the house settle. Somewhere, a glass pinged as it cooled on the counter. The refrigerator kicked on and off like a patient sleeper turning over. I slid the code notice into a sheet protector and clipped it into a binder with Frank's old warranty for a drill that no longer lived here. Then I took the compass pendant from my jewelry box and laid it on the table beside the papers. The needle twitched, found north, and steadied. I left it there while I turned out the kitchen light so I could see it glow a little from the window. The way small things glow when a room is finally dark enough to tell you where they are. The Travis County Civil Court smelled like paper and coffee that learned to wait. Alma and I rode the elevator with a bailiff and a man in a too-tight tie reading a motion as if it would change its mind before the doors opened. The hallway outside courtroom 4B had benches polished by worry. I sat with my folder on my lap, the received stamp peeking purple through the plastic sleeve. Breathe from your ribs, Alma said, not looking up from her notes. And when you answer, Do it like you're talking to the clerk at the grocery. Plain and exact. The clerk called our case Bennett versus King et al. The judge entered in a black robe, falling just short of his boots, and the bailiff asked us to rise. When we sat again, the bench creaked like an old pew. Opposite us, Vanessa took her seat next to a lawyer with a sunburned forehead and a cufflink shaped like a tiny gavel. Cole sat behind them, nodding at the counsel table, hands folded so neatly it looked like they might stay that way forever. Michael slid into the last row, jaw set, eyes down. He did not nod when he caught my glance. Vanessa's lawyer rose. Your Honor, this case is a family misunderstanding dressed as fraud. My client acted under a durable power of attorney, properly notarized and recorded. Any discrepancies are clerical, hardly grounds for the extraordinary relief the plaintiff seeks. Alma stood. Your Honor, what we have is identity theft facilitated by misused instruments. We will show the POA is not authentic to Miss Bennett's will or signature. We will show the agent exceeded any claimed authority by encumbering property the principal does not own. We will show a mortgage broker and a notary aided that misuse. The judge lifted a pen and looked at us over the top of his glasses. Then you'd better show it. Alma called the first witness, Dr. Carlin Witt, a forensic document examiner whose hair had gone white in a practical way. She placed a binder on the witness stand like a small suitcase and pulled out enlarged images of signatures. My driver's license file, a passport application from 1998, a canceled check from last year, and the POA's signature recorded 8 days before the deed. On the monitor, the lines looked like landscape maps. Miss Bennett's natural signature shows consistent pen lift at the second in Bennett, Dr. Witt said, tapping a screen with a capped pen. She also habitually undershoots the cross stroke on her T. She drew a line through the air. On the question signature, the R begins with hesitation. The lift at the second and is missing. The cross stroke is overcompensated. There are indications of drawn simulation, start and stop tremor, and unnatural speed changes. Could arthritis cause those differences? The defense asked. Arthritis produces globally reduced speed and pressure, she said. This shows selective changes, where a copier watches a form and not a habit. The judge nodded once, making no promise that it mattered. Alma introduced Exhibit 7, my cardiology appointment log from Austin Heart Clinic, stamped and certified. Ms. Bennett was undergoing a stress echocardiogram at 10:43 a.m. on the date the POA was signed in Williamson County, Alma said. The clinic is 22 miles from the notary's office. The defense stood. People can sign before appointments, he said. Alma lifted another page. Phone location records obtained with Miss Bennett's consent show her device at the clinic from 9:58 a.m. to 12:16 p.m., with a 2-minute walk to the parking lot. The notary's log produced by subpoena places the signing at 10:41 a.m. She let the numbers sit where everyone could hear them. We called the notary. She did not appear. The judge signed a bench warrant for her testimony and moved on. In her absence, Alma presented the commission file, valid on paper but unreachable by phone, with a mailing address linked to a landscaping company P.O. box. Sharon M. Driscoll, the witness, did not appear in county voter rolls, utility records, or at the Round Rock address written in a hand fancier than it needed to be. The judge scratched something in the margin of a pad and told Alma to continue. Trevor Lane, Alma said, and a man in a navy suit with a pocket square like a new flag took the stand. The oath looked too big in his mouth. He smiled as if the room might prefer him that way. Alma walked him through his NMLS record, the consent order, 5 years back for documentation irregularities. He called it ancient history. She entered Exhibit 12, an email from Trevor to Vanessa, produced by his firm after a subpoena and a brief argument. The subject line read, PA doc timing. We can backdate the notary if needed, but it's cleaner if your mom signs in person. Alma read, Mr. Lane, is that your email? Trevor coughed. That's not how I'd put it in front of a judge, he said, then tried a laugh that died on the first step. I meant the filing date could reflect when the package was complete, not the notarial act. Is that what you wrote? Alma asked. No, he said. And did Miss King bring you the POA? Yes. Did you meet Miss Bennet? He hesitated, eyes widening as if surprise could become a fact. No, nothing further, Alma said. Vanessa's lawyer leaned on the lectern with 2 fingers. Mr. Lane, did you believe you had authority to proceed? I believe the files showed authority, he said, suddenly precise. Alma called Cole. He came as if walking uphill, placed a palm on the Bible and sat. In person, he was quieter than his watch. Mr. Ramsey, who formed Arcadia View Holdings LLC? Alma asked. I did, he said.
Why?
For real estate opportunities, he said, eyes on the table. Who suggested using Miss Bennet's name to secure a mortgage? He looked at Vanessa for a fragment of a second. She never moved. Vanessa, he said, did you understand that Miss Bennet might not have consented? I had doubts, he said. I asked. She said her mother was forgetful, that the POA covered it. Did you profit from the transaction? No distributions, he said. Not yet. Vanessa's lawyer rose. Mr. Ramsey, are you currently represented by separate counsel?
Yes.
And did anyone promise you leniency for your testimony?
No.
He left the stand with his hands in his pockets, a small violation in a room that noticed such things. Finally, Alma called me. The clerk swore me in. The wood of the witness rail was warm from others. Miss Bennet, Alma said, did you sign the durable power of attorney filed with the county?
No.
Did you authorize Miss King to take a mortgage in your name for 9 Palisade Crest?
No.
Did you know of the property before you received a late notice from High Ridge?
No.
Vanessa's lawyer came up with a softened smile. Miss Bennet, you love your daughter? Yes. You've given her permission before, haven't you? To handle bills? To call the cable company? To sign a school form when she was young?
School forms when she was a child, I said.
Not a house when she was grown. When was the last time you loaned her money? Years? I said small, and I wrote it down. And you attended a gathering at the Lake Travis property and brought documents with you. Did you not? I brought a letter to show my daughter something with my name on it. I said, no further questions, he said, as if he had made a point only he could see. He called Vanessa. She walked to the stand like a stage she had not chosen. Up close, the makeup read as effort rather than glow. Miss King, he said, did you believe you had authority to act for your mother? Yes, she said quickly. She told me not to worry about the details.
She said she trusted me.
Did you intend to harm her?
No, she said.
I intended to help. It's an asset. It's an investment. It lifts all boats. Alma stood with the careful calm of a person placing a glass on a shelf. Miss King, did your mother ever tell you she did not want to move from Oakmere Lane? She says a lot of things, Vanessa said. Did she tell you not to sign in her name? Vanessa's mouth made a small straight line. She didn't say those exact words. Did you sign her name? I authorized the notary, she said. That is not the question, Alma said. Did you sign your mother's name? Vanessa looked at the screens like they might give her a cue. I signed so the process could move, she said. Thank you, Alma said, and returned to the counsel table. The judge stacked our exhibits into a squared pile, thumbed their edges, and spoke without turning his head. I find the durable power of attorney invalid as to Miss Bennet's signature and intent. I find the encumbrance recorded against Miss Bennet's name is unauthorized. The mortgage is void as to the plaintiff. I order Arcadia View Holdings to unwind any interest derived from the fraudulent instrument, costs and attorney's fees to the plaintiff. The court refers the matter of the notarial act and the mortgage origination to the appropriate state authorities for review. The gavel touched wood once, barely a sound enough to make silence bigger. Vanessa stared at this bench as if distance could become mercy. Michael wiped a hand over his face and looked at the ceiling. Cole stared at his knees, still folded as if he had rehearsed a posture he could keep. We stood because people stand when a judge leaves. In the hallway, the air felt thinner, as if the oxygen had learned to pass through the room without us. Alma tucked the order into my folder and pressed the edge flat with her palm. Paper in, she said softly out of habit. And then, you did fine, I nodded. The elevator took its time. In the lobby, a vending machine hummed like a chorus. Outside, August sat heavy on Guadalupe Street, and the sun threw hard light at the courthouse steps. I watched a bus kneel for a woman with a cane, then watched it lift again. The binder cut a straight line into my forearm, where I held it close. I shifted it to my hip, the way you do with a sleeping child, and started down the steps one at a time, careful not to miss. After the order, the house relearned quiet. No more envelopes with windows, no numbers in red. The binder sat on the kitchen table like a guest who didn't know when to leave, then moved to the drawer where Frank used to keep warranties for tools that outlived the boxes they came in. I slept without the refrigerator hum sounding like a clock. I couldn't stop. A week later, Alma came by with a certified envelope from High Ridge Community Bank and a second one from their outside counsel. We read at the counter with the hydrangeas, making blue shadows on the tile. The bank's letter was cut from the fabric banks use when they want to sound human. We regret deficiencies in our verification procedures, it said. They enclosed a settlement agreement, fees, reversed account scrubbed clean of the mortgage, a payment labeled goodwill and inconvenience, and a paragraph promising to improve processes in a way that could have been written for any year in any lobby. Alma placed a sticky flag where I should initial and another where I should sign. She never rushed me. It's fair, she said. It is not generous. I like fair, I said. We signed. Alma left with the copies and a bag of peaches I had bought too many of. The screen door clicked. I set the originals in the drawer with the binder and closed it with the flat of my hand. Paper and paper out, a tide that had finally decided which way to run. On Tuesdays, a classroom at Austin Community College smelled like dry erase marker and whatever the AC unit had learned about dust. 12 of us sat in a circle with notebooks, so clean they could reflect your face. The instructor, Mrs. Whitlow, in a gay bob denim jacket and boots, older than some of us, gave prompts that felt small until you wrote them. Describe a room you know at noon, she said. The room I knew was mine. My pen made a soft scratch. The page took what I gave it without asking what came before or after. I wrote the word, hydrangea, and underlined it once. I logged out of the social accounts Michael had set up for me and left the phone face down unless it rang. The silence was not empty. It had texture and weight like folded quilts. In Santa Fe, the air held light the way linen holds starch. Adobe walls curved at the corners as if weather had hands. I rented a room near the plaza with a balcony that looked onto a cottonwood, and I walked to the market in the cool of morning when vendors unrolled blankets and set stones in neat rows. A woman showed me a cuff bracelet she had hammered herself. The interior was smooth as a thought you mean to keep. At a cafe off Canyon Road, I bought postcards with skies, painted so big they made the table look small. I wrote to Zoe in block letters she could read fast. Hi, my girl. North of Austin. The air smells like pinyon and storm dust. The mountains hold the light longer than they need to. I saw a coyote at dawn, gray as the road. Be good to yourself. Love asks for truth, and truth can stand up on its own 2 feet. Nana. I walked it to the box and checked twice that the flap had closed. On the way back, a gallery owner stood in his doorway, like he was framing the street. I kept walking. The sun climbed and pressed the heat down without apology. The shade made its own arguments. The message came 2 days later. A photo of the postcard propped against a mirror from Zoe. Got your card. We're back in school. The compass necklace points north in my locker. Love you. I held the phone the way you hold a bird you don't want to scare and typed, love you back. That was enough for that day. When I returned the HOA packet in the mailbox, it held minutes typed by someone who liked bullets. Use complaint sustained. Cease notices to remain. Future applications to be denied. Absent full board review. The language had no temperature. It didn't need any. The backyard had gone to seed around the edges. I trimmed what wanted trimming and left the rest to argue with September. A cardinal scolded from the fence post as if I had broken a rule I didn't know, then approved when I moved the bird bath out of the full burn of noon. Inside, I wiped the stove as if it mattered and set the coffee maker for morning. Michael left a voicemail while I was in the shower. Mom, call when you can. No tone on either end, just the middle. I saved it without listening twice. Saving and deleting felt like choices bigger than the day required. On a Sunday, Alma brought tamales and a pie in a tin that belonged to no one and everyone. We ate at the table with the window open to catch a breeze. After she stacked our plates and ran water slow enough that the sink could keep up, she said, "You look rested." I replied, "I look like me." "Same thing today," she said, and let the water run for another minute. In the evening, the neighborhood put its lights on one by one. Someone grilled in a backyard 2 houses down. The smoke smelled like mesquite and pepper. The bus on Oakmare side at the corner and knelt for an old man with a tote bag. The hydrangeas, when the light left them, turned a color you only see when you don't try to name it. I took the compass pendant from the dish by the door and set it flat on the table. The needle twitched and steadied in the drawer paper sat where I had left it. I didn't open the drawer. I didn't have to. The house breathed at the seams. In the stillness, you could hear a glass ping as it cooled and a cicada wind down as if the tree had put itself to bed. I turned off the kitchen light and stood a moment in the doorway, the cool from the tile sliding into my feet. The night finding its level, every small thing exactly where it said it would be. Let us know in the comment where are you watching from. Please subscribe to the channel Her Side of the Story. Thanks for watching until here.